Hey everyone, just a bit of a warning. Throughout the recording of this video, we are going to be talking about some pretty heavy topics regarding sexual assault.
Yeah, just general sex abuse and violence are going to be topics that come up in this review because of the nature of the film. So if any of those things are things that you're particularly sensitive to or don't feel like you can, hear discussion about them for your own reasons, this is probably not the video to watch. Just, sort of viewer discretion is advised.
And if you are the victim of any of these crimes, please seek out help. Go to a trusted source. But yeah, just fair warning. We're going to move into the review now.
I got the sneaking suspicion that we're not giving the people what they want.
It's okay, baby. Let's give the people what they want.
Oh boy, here we go.
Hi, I'm Emily. Welcome to $1 Million Media, the show where I'm never wrong about anything.
And I'm Max.
Yes, he's the host of the show. For those of you who did not watch our Joker 2019 review, please go back and watch it. It is required viewing for this video. We talked a little bit about what we expected from Joker 2, and I feel like you need the context in order to appropriately gauge the sound that's about to come out of Max's throat.
Excuse me? Let's say this. The sound that came out of my throat, Jesus, Emily, after I got out of the theater was I ended up being sick. So that's why this review and the Graveyard Shift religious episode are very late. And I do apologize, but I needed to focus on my health.
Joker 2, the movie's so bad it made Max physically ill.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So yeah, as we're saying, we are reviewing Joker FOLIE 2.
FOLIE 2. It's fine. Move past
All right.
it.
Joker 2.
Joker Dose.
Joker Dose. So yeah, the film takes place 2 years after the first film. We follow Joker in Arkham, and he's going up for his court date soon for the crimes he committed in the first film. And while he's in Arkham, he meets Lee Quinzel.
No.
Oh, you didn't know about this?
No.
Her full name is still Harley Quinzel, but they just refer to her as Lee Quinzel.
Okay, on the one hand, I want to be mad at this. On the other hand, in a cut segment from the last Joker video, I'm pretty sure I defended them changing the Penguin's name to Oz Cobb, so I actually don't think I have grounds to stand on this argument.
I don't hate this change, only because I've never really been that big of a fan of Harley's original name.
That's fair. I just think it's whimsical and fun.
Well, this movie is not that.
So, see, they're even sucking the life out of our character names.
Yeah, well, more on that later. Yeah, so let's just get this out of the way. This film is not being received well at all on pretty much any YouTube channel and or website. I haven't heard someone say they like it, but if they say they like something, they have to say, well, everything else in the movie is not really that good either.
That's fair. I would also like to point out on the subject of reception to this film, it made less money than Morbius in its opening weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So even the people who go to ironically watch bad superhero movies weren't exactly showing up for Joker FOLIE douchebag. I don't know what the fuck happened.
I have a couple theories.
Hit me.
Theory number one, no one wanted this film.
Yeah?
I feel like there was a consensus of the zeitgeist that said the first one worked as a solo film. It was a one and done. We don't have to go back to that. And it's this controversial film that just is what it is. We can move on and we can learn from it. I remember hearing people at the time saying, I don't like this movie, but I would really like to see Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix do something else in the future. I was like, okay, cool. And then they announced this film, and they're like, okay, let's see what happens. And yeah, this is what happened. Theory number two, it's a musical, kind of, but still
True.
It's marketed itself as a musical, and as of recently, musicals aren't really the hot thing anymore. Like, just look at the recent Mean Girls. That bombed. Wonka didn't market itself as a musical, and everybody was shocked when it was a musical.
That was a nice surprise, though.
But yeah, that one fits, because it's fucking Wonka.
Yeah.
The first movie was an R-rated send-up to Martin Scorsese films of the 70s and 80s. like your Taxi Drivers and King of Comedy, as we said in the past review. And it's also based off a character that, in many interpretations, is a very violent character. So,
Yes.
hearing musical along with that, people are like, meh. And,
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna defend Joker 2 a little bit here.
all right.
I don't think that it's necessarily fair to imply that musicals can't have adult or violent content.
That's not what I'm trying to imply here. I just think, like, as the public, that's what, when they hear, like, a Joker musical, they're like, really? For me, that sounds pretty entertaining. Because I'm like, there's a lot of really interesting, cool stuff you can do with, like, hey, musicals already have this idea of, like, we enter this fantasy world. Why not have a character who's legit insane? Let's come up with some really creative musical stuff.
Yeah.
That's my stance on it, at least. Yeah.
I think musicals about crazy people are fantastic. I will take a moment to shout out Rachel Bloom's Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which is a fantastic television show that's about exactly that.
Okay.
However, that was trying to be more of a comedy with dramatic elements.
Mm-hmm.
This seems to not go in that direction.
No. This is a full-on gritty drama that suddenly just has musical numbers. Now, I'll say this, as someone who has worked on a musical project before, like a short film. I didn't direct it. I worked on it. I was the editor and director of photography on it. You really, when you want to do a musical, you really have to put in a lot of effort to do a musical. And in my opinion, this film just was not really wanting to do that. Like,
Fair.
They weren't editing to be a musical, they were editing it to be a Scorsese film, and it's just weird when you have people sing. And it just doesn't fit, and they have confirmed that they are singing in camera, so there's no pre-recording, which is nice, like, for Les Mis, but for this, it doesn't work. Because you're trying to be like classic movie musicals, in which they literally pre-recorded everything. Singing in the Rain. Like, that movie's all about, like, someone recording behind the scenes. I had a pretty interesting, like, constructive criticism. If I were to retroactively fix this movie, I would say, instead of doing, like, a loving send-up to classic Hollywood, I would just make the musical numbers look more like comic book Joker.
Interesting.
I would keep the same bullet points of what happens at the end then, because, or like the comic book style, and like, you know, give Joker the purple suit, give him more traditional looking makeup, maybe like make him look like bleached white skin Joker, like give Harley the onesie, and just make it full on like live action Batman the Animated Series craziness kind of thing. And that's what the musicals look like, because that feels more like a Joker kind of musical to me than whatever send up to classic Hollywood this is. I mean, you could keep the songs if you want to keep the songs, but I would just change up the style, because then when you go into the real gritty world, it's this drastic change, and you're like, oh, okay, I see what you're going for here. This is how he sees himself. This is how he sees himself, as this larger-than-life figure. And then when he's in the real world, he's just Arthur Fleck. And that goes into things later in the film. But yeah, that's kind of like the whole musical side of things and how I would change it. Because as the film stands, it's just, yeah, it's afraid to be a comic book film. It's afraid to be a musical. The only thing it really seems comfortable doing is this courtroom drama, which is not that interesting.
Fair. This is interesting because it kind of speaks to the issue that not just me, but a lot of people had with Joker the First.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Sorry.
was... yeah, they're fuck it, they're titled like Shrek movies now. But the first Joker, it didn't want to commit to being anything that was related to the source material at all.
Mm-hmm.
It was very clearly just, we made a Martin Scorsese movie and we slapped some DC IP onto it, and it was very scared of embracing any of the elements that made the source material great. It's basically telling its own story that is, at best, vaguely related to the source material. Which, again, no spoilers, at least for now. But Joker 2 definitely comments on that to an extent.
But here's the thing. This movie doesn't have any template like the original film. So this is a completely new ground. At most, this film is like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and fuck it, like Law and Order. There's a courtroom drama.
I was gonna go 12 Angry Men, but Law and Order also works.
I don't know, because 12 Angry Men, you're kind of on edge, like, did he do it? In this film, you're like, he fucking did it. I saw him do it.
I watched that first movie. I know he did it.
Yeah, like, there's no getting around it. He did it. So that's the thing, too, like, there's two big problems with this film. Well, there's more than that, but, like, the two that I think are, like, the biggest problem is Arthur at the beginning of this film gets a complete character reset. Like, at the beginning of this film, he is just the same attitude and mindset as he was at the beginning of the last film. So, all that build-up in that first film, and in my opinion, a really good build-up of watching this guy devolve into insanity and, like, become the Joker we all know, just kind of gets factory reset at the start of this film, and we kind of get that again in this film, but not really.
Oh.
You could make the argument that, like, Joker is less in this film than he was in the first film. This is just Arthur's movie.
And that's not bad, per se. If that's the direction they want to take, it's fine. But, like, it's weird, because once again, Todd, I'm addressing you directly. I know you're listening. Todd, if you wanted to make a movie that wasn't about the Joker, just fucking make that movie, because it would be a million times less frustrating for audiences if this movie was called, like, the funny clown man.
Call it Clown.
Yeah, exactly, right. And if instead of tying it to established IP, it was just about a guy who dons a clown persona to lead a revolution in the first movie, and in the second movie he's questioning whether or not he or the clown is the real identity. Suddenly, people aren't expecting the movie to be necessarily about the clown, because the clown is an established character with fucking however goddamn many years of lore that people are expecting to see. Right? It would all be solved if Todd Phillips could just admit to his audience that these are original characters who bear almost no resemblance to their comic book counterparts. But he can't.
No, he can't. He can't. And keep in mind, director of Hanging for Part 2. It feels like a shock comedian just saying something and wanting to see what the reaction is. I really think that this shocking joke I'm about to say is going to go over well, and it just flops hard.
Yep.
Now, to be fair, and before we go into more negatives, I do want to say there are some good things about this film. Again, Joaquin Phoenix is amazing. He commits to the role. You can question his singing ability, but, like, I feel like for the high-pitchedness of this Joker, it wouldn't work really that well to sing to begin with, because he did really well in Walk the Line. Lady Gaga, like, this was the big get for this film. Like, oh my god, Lady Gaga's playing Harley Quinn. And she's good. My only problem is I just wish she was in it more, or had, like, a bigger impact on it. I mean, she has an impact on it, so I shouldn't say a bigger impact, but, like, you're not going to remember her that much by the end of this film. I feel like anytime you saw, like, Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, she was one of the talking points of every movie that she was in.
Well, yes, because they wrote her role to be a show stealer. I like Lady Gaga. I think she's a talented actress.
I do too.
I don't think these are the kind of roles that necessarily work for her. I actually think, as much as I kind of had issues with this movie, the Star is Born remake that she was in, she was really good, because they cast her in this role where the idea was that she slowly eclipses the lead, as opposed to being the most magnetic personality on screen at all times. And I think she was really good at that, but I think casting her in roles where she constantly has to, or where you would want her to constantly be expressive and sort of have this bravado, it just doesn't strike me as the kind of vibe that she typically brings to performance.
You would think, though, because of just her personality on how she, like, expresses herself through her music.
You would, but even then, I would argue that it's a very different type of bravado to, like, screen acting bravado.
That's
right? Like, she wears ridiculous outfits and she sings salacious songs, but it's not the same as having sort of high energy, huge stage presence performances.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
I think she just needs to pick better roles.
Here's the thing, like, every role that she's gone after are, like, on paper, good ideas.
Yeah.
Like, getting this film was a good idea. Like, on paper, like, it is a sequel to the movie, the R-rated movie that won Oscars and made $1 billion. You would expect They're like, oh, I'm getting that role. And it's a character that is innately very vibrant and fun. But like, I think it's not the performance that I have a problem with. It's just more like her presence in the film doesn't really help her performance. The film still wants to be this unreliable narrator. The problem with that is when you have to focus on another character's point of view entirely, you're kind of like, so what perspective are we in here? Are we like in fantasy or are we in reality? And that's the problem when you have like these unreliable narrator stories. Once you try to break out and like get out of that single perspective, it starts to get a little bit fumbled on what we're supposed to take seriously or not.
I see. That makes sense.
I will admit, they do some really clever stuff with her character that kind of ties her back into the original character. Because at first you're like, I guess they're just changing her origin for this film, but they do some stuff later in the film where you're like, oh no, they kept the original origin, just kind of changed it here and there a little bit, which I thought was pretty cool. Like, oh my god, they're actually keeping to the source material.
Wow!
Like, oh my god, the thing that was proven good. Yeah, no, the performances are good in the film. Like, the art direction, I mean, the music and the song choices are pretty good. Again, Hilder's music and score is awesome. Not really any new composed stuff. It's a lot of the same stuff from the first film. Oh, what's his name? Brendan Gleeson's good in the film, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. And like, oh yeah, it's a little controversial. Let's just say that. Yeah.
Him. I see.
Yeah. I think we're like really wanting to talk about spoilers, so let's just kind of get into it here. Okay, so yeah, the big thing about this film, at the end of the court trial, after all this stuff has been going on, Joker denies the role. And he just says, I am not Joker, I am Arthur Fleck. The Joker was just made up.
Right. Which would be a solid resolution to that character, in my opinion. I
agree. The thing is, it's the reasoning why he's giving up the role. I mean, we've established many times before on this show, if you're gonna handle sexual assault, and content warning here, sorry. And personally, I feel like it was only used in this film as a shock factor thing. Like, it's just for like, oh my god, the Joker was raped.
Right. Horrible. And frankly, falls in line with that shit that Todd Phillips said about how he couldn't do what he wants to because woke Hollywood will censor him, and then he immediately goes and makes a movie with a shock rape scene.
Yeah, and like, I remember sitting in the theater and just being like, wait, what? Like, this just feels out of nowhere. And to be fair, unfortunately in life, that is just kind of out of nowhere, so that's not my problem. I think my problem is just like, it being used as this huge thing. Like, Joker throughout this movie is supposed to be the symbol of, like, the incels, for the, like, leader of the incels. Right. And the idea that, like, the only thing that's going to shock these incels into, like, realizing what they're doing is wrong is if they, you know, get sexually assaulted.
Which is absurd and ridiculous.
That is just a viewpoint that I have of this. It's not, like, my main viewpoint, but it is something I thought of, like, because the film was doing a good job up to that point of, like, seeing how, like, even though the Joker was, like, highly regarded amongst, like, all the rioters and stuff like that, like, people he actually cared about, like, the little person, Gary from the first film. Yeah. Like, he has an amazing scene. That guy has an amazing scene in this film where he basically says, like, you are the only person that treated me like a normal person. And when you did that, I've never felt so small. And it's just like this really heartbreaking scene because you just kind of see like, oh yeah, like the actions that you did have consequences that you never even thought of. That is a more interesting angle to put it because that should be the thing that you focus on. Like, the actions and all these horrific acts that I do affect more than just who it was intended for. That should be the thing we're focusing on. This comes after he gets raped. So that just kind of eclipses everything, because you're like, would he have given it up beforehand? I don't know.
Right. And that comes down to the most substantive criticism that I've heard of this movie, which is that, again, and this is coming from, I did not take the time out to watch this movie because I heard about what happened in it, and I was like, nah, I'm good. But
Uh,
the most substantive criticism that I've heard from people is that this seems to have been a movie motivated almost 100% by spite for people who liked the original.
oh yeah, it really feels like that. We commented on in the first review, for the first movie, that like the fandom that this created was very toxic.
Yes.
So I have no problem having a little bit of spite and being a little bit like, hey, we're gonna combat these people, instead of like doing tactical and very specific points. I felt like Todd Phillips just was like, you know what? Fuck that first film. I'm just gonna say anybody who liked it, sorry.
Yeah.
So he just dropped a bomb on everybody who liked the first film. And quite frankly, after this film, I don't want to watch the first one ever again, because I'm like, I know what happens, and it's bullshit.
Yeah. And it's interesting because my roommate Cole, who watched this movie and was very angry about it, so I'll incorporate some of his sort of commentary in here. But the comment that he made was that this movie felt like if End of Evangelion didn't have artistic value, and the reason he said that is because End of Evangelion, for those of you who have not seen it, or maybe those of you who have, is also a very, very spiteful piece of art. Right, like that movie is motivated very much so by like a deep hatred for a certain subsection of people who watched the original show.
Really?
Yes.
I did not know that. Okay.
Because there was a lot of fandom that was really focused in on certain elements of the story that were frustrating, and a lot of people who really hated the ending and were like sending hate mail to Hideaki Anno about it. And they were like, we wanted to see like a darker or more serious ending or whatever. And that movie was essentially a response to all of the people who were acting really ungrateful about this piece of art. And that is why it's such a horrifyingly depressing and mean-spirited piece of art. But there's at least something to be said about that being a response to a vocal portion of the fan base who were being really shitty and annoying about the creator's original intent.
Oh yeah.
I don't think people were doing that to Todd Phillips.
I don't know. Like, the first film got a lot of criticism, too. Like, it wasn't, like, a unanimously, like, we like this.
I don't know. I think it's one of those things where it seems like Todd Phillips, instead of responding to the vocal subsection of the audience that did not like things for a specific reason, was just like, fuck you if you earnestly enjoyed the thing I made. If you liked it, I'm just going to stomp on it a little bit, just for your entertainment.
Like, it's the problem when you have to kick out everyone from a bar because 10 loud people are being very disruptive in the back of the bar. So you gotta kick out all 50. That's this film. It's just like, in his attempt to just piss off a particular person, he pissed off everybody.
Yep.
Like, that is a problem with the film. And like, I mean, I'll say this about the film. I will always give credit to a film that takes swings.
Right.
Good swings, bad swings. I appreciate a film that will admit to itself, like, we're just going to do something very different. Right. We're going to take a chance here. And good or bad, and I think most of the swings in this are bad, I can appreciate that swing. Keep swinging, and maybe you'll make a home run next time. But I just don't think, after this film, I don't know if this guy's going to get much work. But then again, like, I think he just cut a deal with the Warner Brothers and was just like, I'm just going to get paid, and I don't care what happens with the film. I mean, yeah. I would hope that's what he did, because if he was like, oh no, I'm going to get a portion of the box office like he did the first film, ooh.
Yeah, that would be not great.
No, yeah, he's fucked. But I think the next thing we do have to talk about is the ending. Like, the very end.
Double spoiler warning. If you really don't want to know the ending of this movie, back out now.
Yeah, okay, so I do have to kind of set it up a little bit. At the end of the court trial, after he says, I'm not the Joker, a car bomb goes off. And I gotta say, one thing that kind of reminded me of, like, the Wayne death in the first film. Harvey Dent's in the film.
And does the car bomb burn half his face?
It kind of puts shrapnel in half side of his face. But they don't commit to, like, the full-on, like, fucked up half face. It's just kind of like, oh, hey, he's got, like, a bunch of cut-up marks on his face. But keep in mind, like, if we're setting up all these villains and whatever the fuck in this Batman world, Bruce Wayne's, like, 12. and that's the thing. One thing I will say, no Batman in this film. At most, you get a Wayne Tower. Like
Interesting.
not even a mention of the Wayne's death in this film.
That's kind of hilarious.
One little line would have been nice, and because like that riot at the end of the first film did lead to that, like you can't deny it.
Right.
It's one of those things where if it wasn't this film, it would make a lot more sense. But since it's not, it's like not a big deal. But moving on. So like Joker just kind of walks out of the courthouse. He gets kidnapped for a little bit by a bunch of his like acolytes, if you will. Watch that review right here.
Damn it, Max. That was a good plug.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if we're pissing people off, might as well recommend that video.
Yeah.
He gets away from them. He climbs up the steps of those famous Joker steps, sees Harley there, and he's just like, hey, we can go live. We can go do what we want. And she says, no, you gave up on the dream. I didn't like you. I liked Joker. And
Interesting.
which I didn't mind if in the context of this story, it makes a lot of sense because like even in the comic books, Harley fell for Joker. He gets caught by the police again. Months later, he's just back to being his depressed self. He gets told by the guards, hey, you got a visitor. He goes down the hallway. And just as he's about to continue down, some inmate just kind of taps him on the shoulder, says like, hey, can I tell you a joke real quick, Arthur? And he's just like, sure, why not? What do you get when you have a clown and a sociopath walk into a bar? And he's like, I don't know. You get what you fucking deserve. And he gets shanked like 20 times by this guy. And Arthur falls to the ground. We focus on him. The guy who stabbed him laughs hysterically in the background. And you don't see it. I do have to point this out. You don't see it. It's all like out of focus in the background, but it's heavily implied that he gives himself a Glasgow smile.
Right.
Final shot in this film as Lady Gaga sings us out with That's Life, like the light in his eyes slowly fade away.
Todd Phillips hates you.
No, yeah, like, okay, I have to tell my story about when I got out of the theater for this.
Okay. Yeah, hit me.
It was me, my mom, and like 6 other people in the theater. But not even when like the lights came up, it was just me and my mom and 2 other people in the theater.
My God.
I was like, you know what? I have to ask. So I literally went over to these 2 random people, never met them in my life, and I go up to them and I say, hey, I know I don't know you guys, but do you really feel like you just got flipped off into a big fuck you by the end of this film? And they said, oh yeah. And I was just like, okay. And we had like a good long discussion about the film. And I was just like, man, I just feel like I just got the biggest middle finger by the end of that film. And everybody just kind of left that theater pissed. Those guys went off and did their own thing. Really nice guys. If you're watching this, hi. You're really cool. Sorry this video's late. And then as we're leaving the theater, me and my mom just passed by 2 other people who held the door open for us. And they just kind of looked at us and say like, so what'd you see? And we were like, Joker. And they were like, same. And I asked, what'd you think? And they were like, honestly, bad. And keep in mind, I saw this on a Thursday night.
Fucking magic of cinema, baby. Bringing true movie fans together.
Like, the first guys were like a little older than me. And then the next people we met were the middle-aged people. Yeah. Like everybody just kind of felt like, man, I just got told, fuck you.
So I have an interesting piece of trivia about this ending. You might already know it, but I don't know if everyone in the audience does.
Spill it.
So the original first Joker movie was supposed to end with Arthur giving himself a Glasgow smile.
I did hear about this, yeah. Okay.
Yes. And instead of painting the blood on his face. But Christopher Nolan stepped in and told the crew that they couldn't do that because it was disrespectful to Heath Ledger's legacy, because that was such an iconic part of that Joker design. And it felt shock value and gross to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Nolan, between the first and second movies, left Warner Brothers. And so I guess they felt like they could do that. But frankly, in this context, it seems even more gross and disrespectful to Heath Ledger's legacy.
Mm-hmm. It also...
Given the fact they ignored that comment the first...
yeah, here's another thing, too. Like, the first Joker film already had a nice little reference to Heath Ledger's Joker when, like, you see the camera rig outside of the cop car looking in, and it's kind of shot the same way as, like, Joker flailing his hair.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good little reference, if, like, a visual cue that, like, if you know it, cool. If you don't, move on. But this one was just, like, so over the head. Honestly, like, the whole him laughing in the background was good enough for me. Like, he kind of looks like various other Jokers. And this might be the Joker, and that's how the theory ends. But with just implying the Glasgow smile, it's just like, alright, here we go.
Yeah.
That's not even a good origin for that Joker either. Because if this is the Joker that fights Batman, he just stole his whole act from another guy.
Yeah, I mean, believable origin for Ledger's Joker, but unsatisfying regardless.
I mean, I don't even believe that for Ledger's Joker. I believe that, like, there's various other things that led to that origin of that character. We just don't know about it. But, like, this one is just, like, alright, so it's just some guy.
Yeah. Which is shitty and annoying, but this whole movie is shitty and annoying.
Yeah, and, like, I'm trying to think of, like, other things. And I think the guys that we were talking to, like, they were just waiting for that guy to be name dropped as Jack Napier.
Right.
Like, as just, like, a bigger, like, huh? Get it?
That would have been fucking hilarious, honestly. And for a penny and for a pound, right? Like, you might as well.
Exactly. I wasn't sad to see Arthur go, because I was like, fuck that guy. Like, I don't really care. And that's the thing, like, you don't care that he's dead. You're just kind of...
Care that it was all meaningless.
Yeah, you're just like... And the thing is, like, oh, but that's the point of the film. But here's the thing. Okay, point taken. I just wasted $35 fucking dollars.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. It's fucking... It's deceptive, right? It's like, you know, we called the first movie Joker, but retroactively, that movie was about Arthur, an unrelated guy who got stabbed by the Joker, and then the Joker just took his clown shtick and was like, that's all, and fucking left. And that was the bit.
Yeah. Us here at $1 Million Media, we don't have $1 million.
Yeah.
I go out of my way to see all of these movies and pay for them and these TV shows. I have all these streaming services. I have all this stuff. Like, I put a lot of time and effort and money into this thing. So when I see stuff like this that does waste my money and is basically a big F you to me, I'm like, thanks, Warner Brothers, or not even Warner Brothers, because honestly, fuck David Zaslav, but he had nothing to do with this film.
Yeah.
Like, they just let Todd Phillips do his own thing, and, like, it just feels like a big, spiteful mess of a film. And it's just like, when people are upset about this film, it's not because they're the incels that are, like, their god is dead now. It's like, no, like, a bunch of people who paid good money to see the first film just got screwed out of, like, a very hefty ticket price.
Right.
Like, that's the thing we have to account for here. Like, nothing's cheap anymore. Especially when the first film was all about, like, the people who have nothing.
Right.
And basically saying, like, hey, fuck you, pay for my film that's gonna piss you off. And, admittedly, I have no problem with some films doing things that piss me off. If it's, like, natural to the story. But I feel like for this, it's just out of spite.
There can be movies that want to push your buttons or make you uncomfortable in ways that make sense. Like, I have my disagreements with his artistic intentions as a filmmaker, but Gaspar Noé...
Hey, he shows back up again in this.
Yeah. Like, Gaspar Noé, he makes movies that are very intentional with how they intend to disturb or upset you.
Irreversible.
Right.
Like, if you want a film that has a scene in it...
Yeah. But the thing about Irreversible is that if you want to get French on it, that movie, that scene is there for a reason. It's meant to contextualize everything else that happens. And the fact that men are the primary actors in that movie, like the primary characters, and the violence that incites the whole incident of that movie is done to a woman is legitimately trying to comment on something. It's not only there to be like, you suck for watching this movie, we hate you. Right? Like, it is fundamentally a part of the thesis of the art. And I don't feel like, from what I have seen of it and how I understand it, that Joker 2 has that intention. It feels so much more motivated by spite than it does any intrinsic thesis about what it wants to say beyond, fuck you, I'm Todd Phillips. That's just the energy that I get from it. It has serious, like, chortle my dick energy.
Yeah, it does. And it's also really interesting to see, like, him in interviews. Because I watched an interview with him talking about this film, and I'm just like, he's just kind of putting up this, like, oh, they don't know what's coming, do they? Like, he's answering all these bullshit questions about, like, comic book stuff. And he's just like, I'm just gonna get through this, and once I'm done, like, yeah. Like, I remember they asked him, like, what would you think if a Batman came into this world? And he was just like, I don't know, I feel like Arthur would just be in awe of how alpha he is. And I'm just like...
Oh, right, I saw that interview. Todd Phillips is so fucking annoying. Like, can we just admit, he's such a douchebag?
Yeah. I watched the trailers to all 3 original Hangover films just to kind of get an idea of, like, what his whole vibe was before. Like, he was like, I'm going to be an auteur. Not really.
Yeah.
And a lot of the comedy, I'm just like... I mean, again, it is very much, like, a thing of its time, but, like, I remember it being funnier, but I was like, this just seems just like a bunch of guys that I just don't like. And it feels like it's him multiplied by 3, just going around doing stuff.
Or at least he comes across that way. And it's like, there are some creatives who are douchebags, but I still enjoy their work. Todd Phillips has not earned that from me.
Fair.
He does not make things that are good enough for him to be acting like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really have much else to say. I can't really think of anything I was, like, really sitting on.
You answered everything I wanted to know. I was like, was Harley Quinn good in the movie? And you were like, yeah, but I wish she was in it more. And I was like, cool. So that's like the one reason I would have to watch this movie. Kind of down the drain. I like Lady Gaga. I like Harley Quinn. I love Harley Quinn.
I do too.
I think she's much more interesting when she's detached from the Joker, but that's just me.
I can see that, but I feel like that original story is so important. You want to talk about a message? Like,
yeah.
That was a message from, like, a show directed at children that showed domestic abuse.
100%. Not to say that she isn't interesting when she's with the Joker. Yeah, I like a lot of the stories that are told more with her as an independent character rather than her as a side character in Joker stories. And that come down to the fact that the domestic abuse stuff tends to be handled better when she is the lead character, in my view.
Okay, fair. Yeah. Okay, I didn't know what she meant by that.
Batman the Animated Series still handles her very well, though, so props there. But I think Harley Quinn is a great character, and it's a shame to see her being used as, like, a side piece in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, that's just really unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of it. Like, I mean...
go support good movies. Find movies that you've never heard of.
Here, I got a couple. Reviews will be out shortly for them. I don't know when, but I'll try to get them out. But go see Transformers 1, and go see The Wild Robot.
Go see the 4:30 movie, the new Kevin Smith movie. Go watch any of these movies.
I assume that film, like the 4:30 movie, has a Harley Quinn in it.
It does. Yes, she is in it.
Yeah, I knew.
Fucking all of the Kevin Smith buddies are in it. This isn't a review of the 4:30 movie, but it is a better film.
All right.
Silly, it's raunchy, it's Kevin Smith. And go watch that. Go watch Transformers 1 and The Wild Robot. Support great independent, well, not independent, but like animated movies, because those are fucking rad as shit. Mm-hmm. Go watch old classic movies that you might not have had the opportunity to appreciate. Like, fucking, if you haven't seen it already, go watch Psycho, or go watch, I don't know, fucking Heathers. Go watch a movie.
I know what the audience can watch. Currently, we're going through our the Halloween specials, the Graveyard Shift.
Oh, that's true. You can watch videos on this channel. Mm-hmm. They may just be us yapping about movies, but they carry more artistic value.
They carry value.
I'm just saying. I think we're cooler than Todd Phillips. You could watch Todd Phillips hate you for 2 hours, or you could listen to Max and me and Chris talk about internet horror on The Graveyard Shift here on $1 Million Media. Mm-hmm. You could also like and subscribe to our channel to see more content like this that's probably less complainy, because we usually review movies we feel more positively about. Help Max recuperate the financial damages inflicted upon him by Joker 2. Give him $35, and I will personally send you a handwritten card that says, thanks for doing that. I will do this. This is not a joke. I'll do it. If someone gives Max $35, I will write you a personal thank you letter.
Yeah.
Send this video to the Joker to your Harley Quinn.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.